Well, I'm Joe Rotella, and it's my pleasure today to have a conversation with Christine Ritchie, a past president of the Academy. Christine, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us about the year you were president, and what were the big challenges that year?
Sure. So I was president in the year 2015 to 2016. That was right after the rollout of the Affordable Care Act. It was right when we were beginning to talk a lot about value-based payment and reimbursement, about quality, and palliative care was really coming into its own. It had a lot of presence already in hospital settings. We're beginning to talk about its relevance and appropriateness in the community, and we were also continuing to engage in conversations around the important interdigitation between hospice and palliative care.
So I recall, was that the year that MACRA came out? Was that when we first started hearing about MIPS?
That was the first time we started talking
APMs
about
and
MACRA,
all those things.
and it was developed to take the place of the sustainable growth rate formula, which had essentially been what was supporting the Part B payments for physicians, and this was such a complex set of new rules and regulations that it took a while for us as the Academy to figure out what the implications were for our field and for our providers. That was also the year that we engaged in strategic planning for the Academy. I had the privilege of being on the board when we had our previous strategic planning effort, and so it was fun to then help initiate this sort of new round of strategic planning to think about where the direction should be for the field going forward.
When you were able to look back at the prior strategic plan and then see the new one that was emerging under your administration, what changes did you notice?
So a couple things that were there before but may have had slightly different areas of emphasis, and I think the two changes did play around some of the changes that were going on in healthcare. So there were a lot more conversations around quality and the importance of our addressing and embracing quality and alternative payment models. And then the second was around workforce, which has been an issue for us for a long time, but trying to think very creatively about how do we not only bring in new workforce, but keep our current workforce. How do we support resilience? How do we support the efforts of folks within our field to make sure that people don't get burned out?
And maybe a recognition too that some of the palliative care that people need is really going to need to come from their primary care physicians or from other kinds of specialists.
Right.
And how do we make sure that they're up to speed for doing that as well?
Right. Absolutely.
So as you start to look forward, what do you think the big challenges are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years?
There are going to be many challenges and I think many opportunities. So I'll start with the opportunities because I think they play into the challenges. The opportunities will be in some part related to our ongoing demographic shifts and the fact that we now have 11,000 people turning 65 per day in the United States, and the likely accompaniment of those individuals, at least a subset of those individuals, having serious illness. And that opportunity means that is an opportunity for us to demonstrate ongoing relevance to providing holistic, person-centered care for those individuals as they develop serious illness, and of course all the people who have serious illness before they turn 65. That's an opportunity. I think the threat relates to potentially senses by our society and by government that we have constrained, and we do have constrained healthcare resources, and how are we going to do best by those healthcare resources, and potentially the threat of going back to sort of what we know in the status quo as opposed to thinking creatively about a truly interprofessional, whole person approach towards healthcare.
Seems like we don't go wrong if we focus really in on our patients and families and what they need. So one of the things you were known for during your year as president is poetry, that you would often start a meeting with a poem or end a meeting with a poem. And that, I know that was very meaningful to me, but I wonder, why do you do that? And And would you like to share a little bit more about your love of poetry?
Sure. So I find poetry as being a useful tool for going deep into important parts of who we are quickly. So you can do that through art, you can do that through music, you can do that through fiction and novels. Poetry serves as frankly, a more straightforward, simple, and portable way of tuning into sort of who we are in a much more multidimensional way, and what is important to us in a way that tends to be accessible, but also sort of contributes to a conversation and a type of conversation that one doesn't get when we're just talking about the facts. It also speaks to mystery, and I do believe that as we think about our work, there is this certain kind of mystery associated with it. The mystery, I think, that emanates out of love, compassion, and focusing on the well-being of others. So poetry to me taps into that, and so for that reason, it seemed like a natural thing to integrate into our work and into our meetings. And
I'm just wondering if you could think forward, 10 years from now, and imagine that all the barriers and obstructions and uncertainty we see today, none of those matter, and we actually achieve your ideal vision of where we could be in 10 years. What would that look like?
Oh, wow. I would love for palliative care to almost no longer be relevant, because the work that we espouse and that we do would be so mainstreamed and so important and so natural because of people's engagement, because of the skills that they've developed, because of their comfort with things that right now I think are many people feel uncomfortable with. That those things, we just wove, those were woven into the fabric of our education and into the way we socialized people into medicine and healthcare, into our health systems, thinking of our health systems as truly being patient and caregiver oriented in every possible way. If we were able to work ourselves out of the business, that would be amazing.
Great. Anything else you want to add at this point?
No, but thank you for this wonderful interview.
It was great talking to you, and thank you for your service.